Hello, everyone. Today I am with Jody, director of the new amazing movie, an inspirational movie, The Bearded Girl. So, hi, I'm very pleased to meet you today.
Nice to meet you. I'm happy to be here.
I would like to kick off my interview by asking at the beginning, Josephine is not very Irish, but you can see that there are things that she does not understand yet. So I wanted to know, does she represent what the world doesn't understand? Because she's loud about the things that she don't understand, and she doesn't want to try to understand because she's so young.
Josephine, the sister.
Yeah, the little girl that says that clowns are boring and all that stuff.
I think Josephine, too, a lot of her aggression comes from her own wounds and not feeling seen, not feeling included. Her dad was a clown, a clown that her mom made, forced him to be so he could come into their community. And I just think, just the word clown is a bit of a metaphor to how we use it in society. We always call someone a clown, and doing something that maybe they're not fully doing, not something that they're not fully embodying naturally. And so I think what she's feeling, especially at that dinner, I always call that dinner her like villain origin story, because it's where for the first time she's feeling like incredibly left out. Her sister's there getting all this attention. She's going to be the heiress of everything and be the new um, head of the matriarch. And then she just realized that she is left out. So instead of embracing it and being like happy for her sister, her reaction is negative because it's rooted in jealousy and just feeling like sad and maybe not being left and being left out.
And character seems to embrace and celebrating the bearded women. Was it a way to tell the world to embrace their differences?
Yeah, I think with the beard, it is a device for anything really, like something that we inherently have that we might not be comfortable with at first, or we are comfortable, and then society tells us not to be, and then having to find a way to be comfortable with it again. So it's basically like it could be anything. It could be someone who's not comfortable with their body, someone who's not comfortable with their first language that they speak at home, their queerness, and just then learning how to embody it without having it define them. And I think in a film where you only have 90 minutes to talk uh, about these things, it's having the beard is a very fast visual cue of this otherness that is represented with the beard. Just because subconsciously in our society we don't really put together a woman with a beard, right? So all of a sudden that's odd. And so I didn't have to explain too much. We just know that it might be perceived as odd. But if it wasn't for Josephine telling her that when she was young, she probably wouldn't have felt that it was odd until she maybe got a little older. And then she would have probably had the same experience, but her sister definitely instilled it a little bit earlier for her.
And what surprised you the most about how people responded to the bearded girl? Did you get any reactions? People coming to you, telling their personal experiences?
Well, yeah, like, and that is stuff that I I hopefully expected, because I feel like it is a universal story that is for people who feel like they have something that they've been hiding or not fully integrated, feeling seen. So some of the things that are surprising to me that I did hear were in just things I read in some of the reviews. Like someone equated it to like a Christian story, which to me was pretty interesting because it's like, yes, there was like Christian elements in it, but that was almost like
That's
used as it was almost like a joke in a sense of using it to be like, oh, this is definitely not what they are, like using that as an opposition force to what they were. But that was something that surprised me. But I think in terms of just like people coming up to me and feeling like affinity with it, there was, you know, a lot of people that did, and that was nice to know that it brought comfort of some sorts, because that was probably my biggest intention with this, it was to like make a film that was like easy to digest, comfortable, created a safe space for people to feel familiar with it without um, telling too much. You know, it was a simple story. So simple stories a lot of the time give space for people to feel connected to it.
And the generational tension between legacy and self-invention feels universal. So, how did you make the characters relate to the burden of inheritance?
So I think that in this case, I added a second layer of it actually being like linked to their stability of a home. And I think Lady Andre, the mom, definitely represented that bridge of tradition from the old into the new. So that's why she was very like really trying to hold, like that's all she had known, and she probably felt forced into that. And so she just, you know, I think she was done with it as well and wanted to go on to a new life for herself. So she wanted to sort of pass the burden down to her daughter. So yeah, I think there's definitely some like symbolic characters there with it, because again, it's not a new story like, you know, inheriting your family's your what's expected of you, you know, that you have it go back as far as like it's the Little Mermaid, or like there's it's been told to us forever. I think in this way it's I just modernized it a way to so people could feel, oh, it's like there's new things that are incorporated into this like old story of tradition.
And Lady Andre is not considered as a villain, but she's terrified of changes. So, do you think that the bearded girl offered her some sort of redemption in some way?
I think so. I think when her daughter left, it gave her a little bit of a space to reflect that, you know, things you think some things are solidly what they're going to be no matter what, because there's rules, like she overstated it. There's rules in place, you have to do this, there's no choice. And I think that once her daughter did leave and she had some space to be like, wow, people don't have to do exactly what they're told, they can go. And like she had a similar thing happen with like the backstory of her husband, their dad who had left before the story started. And so I think she had some time to reflect on that. And then at the very end, when we see her arc and kind of come full circle, she seems, you know, a little bit more at peace with it. Just in that final scene when the, the it's a new they're doing like she had brought back the new changes to the show. And I feel like she was less resistant now. She had to go through losing something and realizing that it's through the loss of it that she then had to change as well. So that's kind of how I tried to make that scene.
Great to know.
Yeah.
The movie never rushes toward catharsis. Instead, it chooses observation and ambiguity. Were you tempted to resolve things more traditionally, or was always restraint the intention?
Well, definitely restraint was the intention. Like, basically, there is a lot of backstory to these characters. Like, I know if the film is this big, the world that I know in my mind is this big. Like, I know every character's history, what motivates them, what, and so I think that my intention was to know this about these characters, hand off some of that backstory to the actors, which then helps the very like limited screen time with these characters. It helped them feel rich and full and dimensional because they knew about themselves and in a full character way. So my intention was to make a simple story well instead of a complicated story not well. It was sort of a safe choice for my first feature,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time not fully safe, because to do a slow story like that with not a lot going on is also there's also nuances to it that need to be done right in order so people don't get bored, right? Because again, it's
Right.
simple. There's a lot of restraints. There's scenes that feel long, like, but I think that is the intention. Lean into things that are quiet, not a lot of people around. We had a lot of extras on the set that I didn't use
Mm.
because I felt just being super intentional with what was going on screen, almost like a theater
Yeah.
show, and just being like giving space for the characters to emote without words sometimes. And then that creates, again, like I said, space for the audience to feel something from what is happening. Almost like looking at art or something, right? You have time to put your stories in there and wonder what's going on beneath the surface, which makes it a lot more interactive for an audience person to be able to start putting story together in their mind, which I like to do as an audience member when I'm watching something. So I try to give that same experience that I like to the audience members.
And how did you approach the mother-daughter dynamic?
Um, so the mother-daughter dynamic, I'm a daughter, I have a mom. I come from a family of three daughters and a mom who's also very headstrong. And I think that, just dealing with the with the matriarchal expectations from the daughter, I think it was pretty. It's like something that I know quite a bit about in that way. So I basically, the tension is already there for the expectations, and then just giving freedom to the actors too with that backstory and with the conflict to then work with their own chemistry that they have with each other to provide what we saw there at the end, in the end product. Yeah.
Um, Now here comes one my favorite questions. So my first question would be, the sense of lived-in space is strong. How did you approach production design to make both the sideshow and the rural town feels equally real yet distinct in tone?
So our department costume, mostly everything was either handmade or vintage. Clothes were costume was all vintage, and so just as something lived in, we already automatically know with vintage it's lived in.
Yeah.
Nothing was past the 90s in terms of any sort of set design, any cars, any style, any wardrobe. So again, lived in because it's literally been lived in. Um, and then I think with the two worlds, it was important for me to make the freak show feel like the more warm, hospitable place where you feel like a community atmosphere. There's a lot of people around. It feels much more normal, and I try to make it more comfortable to live in that space than when we go to the normal world, where the Harold, the character who is the bridge from the one world to the other, brings her into this world where the first scene we go into is like the milk scene, which is pretty awkward. It's a pretty awkward scene, purposefully, because you think you're going into like the people in my world. I've always said that represent super normal society. I always felt uncomfortable in that. I always felt uncomfortable in like towns, rural towns that only had white people, or like, and I would really gravitate towards friends that were of like first generation immigrant families, because it made me feel more comfortable that there was like other people, not just this one type of uncomfortable um, uncomfortable energy, and that's what I tried to do with this, and just kind of give that like give that energy of, oh, the circus freak world is a nice place to be, and the other one is what we would consider the opposite, really.
And I wanted to know also, there's a quiet defiance in Cleo's decision to shave and leave. Can you talk about what that act symbolized, not just visually, but emotionally and narratively?
So in the beginning, when she's at her first christening, that ceremony, um, her mom says, like, one of the vow that she takes was, you promise to always take care of your beard, respect it, never kind of treat it like a living being that you take care of on your own. So that's always been super instilled in her, that to respect her beard as if it's almost like this magical entity that she needs to take care of. And so by her cutting it off, shaving it off, and leaving was her way of saying, okay, I don't want to be defined by this anymore. I don't want to be objectified by it anymore. And the interesting thing is, when she goes into her new world, the new world, she is equally as objectified and for being beautiful, right? So I think that her first instinct with shaving her beard was thinking that she could get rid of that by something physical. And then, she comes to learn that it's never going to be something physical. It's going to be her being comfortable with herself, no matter where she is, and that yourself is always going to follow you around. And and so it was the first physical, symbolic step of being able to be like, okay, I don't want to be defined by any physical feature. I just want to explore who I am. And that was her permission to herself to do that. Plus, it was like literally against her pact that she had taken to be the bearded woman. So I think, again, just giving a few layers of that. So, there's no way to, like, one of the things that was really important to me was to make sure that there was not really much that you could be confused by in this story. So it's like, then what does is that you're giving these thoughtful questions, because it gives more of a palette to be able to think about the deeper meaning behind things, because you're not left trying to figure out what's going on, right?
Right. And I think it will leave an impact on a positive impact on the queer community. So I'm pretty sure you thought that it was queer spirited in some ways. So what was the process into including such themes in a very interesting movie like this one?
I think my intention with it was to, like, as a queer person myself, like, just normalizing the queer experience. A lot of movies that we see, especially at film festivals or just in our contemporary world, when it has queer elements to it, is usually surrounded by queer trauma. It's usually has to do with, like,
Yes.
and I don't have a lot. I've obviously, most queer people have their own trauma. Most everyone has their own trauma, but I don't really relate to my trauma from a queer perspective, my as queer trauma very much
Yeah.
anymore. So I think my whole goal was to normalize the queer experiences within a world where we don't usually see it, like cowboys, and, like, the masked cowboy is a trans man, and that was purposefully cast as that. And just the little nuances of, like, there is some coming of age figuring sexuality out with twins and all of those things, but um it wasn't about the trauma to get there. It was about just normalizing it. So you're bringing these queer characters into a space that, if you're like a very straight person watching it who really doesn't understand much about that world, say like a generation before us, they might not even other them in respect then, and then be able to just watch a story and humanize every single person just for what they are, and not like, oh, this person's having a queer experience here. They're just having an experience that anyone can relate to. And so I think that was an intention of mine, to make it not a focal point, but to just really integrate it in, so that, because, some people look at this as a queer story, others do not, right? Like, I'm not even
Right.
sure if it would be considered a queer film for a queer film festival or something. I don't know, because people take from it what they want to take from it,
Yeah.
and that was my intention, to create like palette that was clean enough in that sense where people could make it their own, and really and pick up on the parts of it that they wanted to, and make it about their experience. So that, and of course, queer people are gonna gravitate to it in that sense, because we have this immediate feeling of being othered and having to come into our own. No, regardless, it's a little more poignant than other people, like more in the hetero community.
I wrote a sentence to describe the movie. I would love you to describe the movie in one sentence. So, what I said was, we are born as we are, we do not become it.
I like that. I really like that a lot. That was beautiful. Thanks. I would say, if I was to describe it in a sentence, I would say it's about being celebrated for who you are and your differences, but not being defined by them.
I love that also. I really love that. I love the way that the movie was portrayed. I love the way that you brought the subject. It's just a great movie, and I feel like people should watch it. You guys should watch it. Like there's no discussion. Just go watch it whenever it comes out. In fact, do you have any set release date or plans maybe to release it next year?
So we have our Canadian distribution through Vortex Media, and our initial plan was to release it in the fall. And I think we're going to be pushing that a little bit. I requested that we maybe wait into the spring, so we can see about just matching it up with the American or international distribution, so it can kind of come out at the same time everywhere. It gives it a better, if you have it come out in different places at the same time, it gives it a better chance to be seen by more people. Than if you just bring it out in Canada, then it kind of limits sometimes people in other spots in the world. And I tried to make this film as easily relatable and translatable in other countries and different languages, if need be. So I hope that you should be seeing it either in the theaters or on one of the streamers by early 2026.
Thank you so much for your time. I loved it. I love this conversation. Please, guys, stay tuned. Follow the Bearded Girl on social media. Keep an eye on it. It's definitely a movie that you will want to see. Bye.